We have as a guest today Joe Friendly himself. He's the fellow who is on Manhattan Neighborhood Network an hour before me each weekday, and he is doing magnificent programming. If you would you please introduce yourself?
Thank you, Harold. I am the guy who makes the show before yours called Truth for a Change. I'm usually behind the camera, although lately I'm behind the computer finding YouTube goodies.
Really good goodies.
I have been finding some good ones. Although people worry about my life being taken from me because I show stuff that people have been killed for. Somebody sent me an email today that different 9/11 witnesses and stuff were strangely shot twice in the head, called it a suicide stuff. But quite a lot of that. So hey folks, Alex Jones asked this woman a week before she was killed as an apparent suicide, "Are you attending suicide?" And she said, "No way, Jose." And the government sort of faked the suicide on her. So the reason I raise that stuff is today, Harold, is a special day. And I'd like a close-up on me as I explain to the world the importance of this day. This day is the name that you dial when there is danger. This day is 9/11 on the telephone system. Danger, problem. That day was chosen by government officials of this country and others. They picked 9/11 for a new Pearl Harbor. And that's the story, folks, that 9/11 is a big lie that has still been maintained as a big lie. And Harold, what I want to do on your show, if you'll give me full screen and happy hallelujah, I want to talk about how to apply the revelations of 9/11 to save America. And when I say save America, here's what I mean. 9/11 proves if our government killed all those people and has been lying all along, then they don't have authority. That is like they are a criminal enterprise. And the reality is that at this time, let us identify it. That is, Trump is a clown. But he just is the ultimate proof at the end, because the choice before us, Harold, right now, the choice before us is the usual historical solution where we blow up in a nuclear explosion. But the alternative to us all blowing up, and we do deserve to blow up in terms of the horrible things that my program has told you about in country after country. We have done horrible things to so many countries that we do deserve to burn up, but God or nature or circumstance, we have another chance to save ourselves before that happens. By what? By a guy like who? Me, explaining the language of the alternative. That's been the problem, that people acknowledge that there is this problem, that our institutions are corrupt. In our government, it's acknowledged. Al Gore said a couple of days ago that the going game in Washington is for our so-called representatives to be on the telephone 5 hours a day or more pleading for money, which is called bribery. So we have a system of prevailing bribery, but the government is maintained because the public is stupefied that the media has been preempted by the bad guys. And what I'm proposing is the language to solve the problem. I'm spelling it out nice and clear. What I'm talking about is getting past Marxist rhetoric. That what we're talking about is individuality and human solidarity, both thriving. For humanity to thrive in its individuality and in the bureaucracy, in the working together as a people, in sharing decision making. And what I propose is
peaceful revolution.
The idea is the language. Here's the language that I'm going to read right now for the public to consider as a next step. The language is online, peacefulrevolution.us. Here we go. Direct democracy, actual democracy, replacing what we got. I call it our failed representative government. So that's the revolution made simple. Let's aim at that. Public corporations of, for, and by the people, serving the public and the planet. That another name for that is redistribution of wealth, but basically we're saying that as we redistribute wealth, what the accomplishment is, we're going to put in place a new way of thinking about the business world thinking, that these are institutions in which the people who run them, and they're going to be cooperative, working together with the workers, is what is the best we can do for the people and the planet. That is not the game going down now in business as usual land, and that's what I'm saying the revolution is. We begin creating a government in waiting to lead us in a national discussion, to articulate the alternative. We can then, after we work it out, peacefully vote into happening. One of the people that comes to mind is Tom Hartman.
Tom Hartman's great, yeah.
And people like that. There are people in WNYC that I like. I like Brian and Leonard. Amy Goodman is the top on my list. That I love Amy Goodman. There are things to pick on her for. And to tell you the truth, Harold, I say right now, here and now, on 9/11, one of my dreams was to have a videoed conversation of me and Amy Goodman in which I explained to her that 9/11 was a big lie, is a big lie, and that it was, in particular, the main thing is controlled demolition. So, Amy, here's the deal with 9/11. The two airplanes that hit, one hit here, one hit in the shoulder. In one, the fuel burned up in front of all of us quickly, in a minute or two. In the other, the fuel went inside the building and made some fire action going on there. In both cases, they burned. For the first one who got hit second, that one came down after about 55 minutes of burning, and the firemen in the building were already reporting they put the fire out. And the official story is that it made some sense for all of a sudden for the entire building to be dropped into rubble on the ground in somewhere of the order of 12, 15 seconds. For all of that building to come down in 12 seconds is normal for a controlled demolition. The buildings were arranged by professional demolition companies to come down. That is the truth. It wasn't the hijackers, it wasn't the Arabs, it wasn't the Muslims. It was people of our own government on September 11 choosing 9/11 as a nice way to nail a new Pearl Harbor in the public mind, so that we could get the public to give up liberty for a rule by fear government. A war on terror is rule by fear. Another name for that is police state. And what does the police state get caught doing by Edward Snowden? Recording all of our communication. So in terms of, is our country due for replacement, we have a baseball cap I've been wearing. Let's replace our corrupt government. Uncle Sam is a big bully, which reminds me that right now the danger of our blowing ourselves up is over Korea. And I did send out on Twitter an email a couple of days ago to all our liberal people in Washington, our liberal senators and congressmen, and I had a simple message. Please consider waking up the American people to the wrongfulness of the Korean War and urge apologizing. That instead of blowing ourselves up, the other side of the coin, instead of Trump's rhetoric, which is out there in front of all America threatening nuclear war. He's used the language to cover. He said all options are open, that kind of language, that includes nukes. So he's threatening the other side with nukes. How dare they want a nuke when we're the ones who are supposed to be the bullies? Harold, have you noticed I got away with words?
Yeah, you do have
you do have here it is, 9/11. I'm talking to Amy Goodman, and I'm saying, Amy, sweetie pie, darling, and all that good stuff. We're talking about buildings coming down in 12 seconds. We're talking about the concrete flooring 110 stories of concrete flooring, about this much concrete with on top of steel corrugated pans.
Yeah.
All that concrete flooring disappearing into extraordinarily fine dust in those 12 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That flooring turned into what they call not normal dust, but extraordinarily fine dust. Mm-hmm. That's the language the scientists use for describing not only what turned to dust, not only that flooring, mm-hmm. but the filing cabinets in the offices turned to fine dust. You'd think that, you know, when a crushing of all that one floor on top of another, you would have mangled steel. Mm-hmm. That would be what I would expect looking around, but hello, all that was left pretty much was dust, which blew away and people died later from breathing it in. In the dust, they did find how it turned to dust. But let's talk about the steel. It's time for a picture. There's the picture. I claim, Harold, that that picture proves that 9/11 is a big lie. That what that picture has around the edges are pieces of steel thrust outward with great force. Not a building coming down on itself, but explosions happening. And each of those clouds, notice those clouds, these have a shape. You know, they look like different animals, and each one is a totally different shape. And every time there's an explosion, it triggers a cloud. So all of those different little clouds are from different explosions happening to blow the building apart. And as it's blowing it apart, look at all that steel all over the place, not only on the edges, but in the front. And here's the story about the steel. The way steel is cut is that there is this invention called thermite. Thermite was discovered in 1890, Amy Goodman, and it involves just particles of aluminum and particles of rust ignited. When they're touching together, ignited. In those days they used ribbons of some rare metal, iridium and stuff. But anyhow, nowadays we got plenty of ways to ignite aluminum powder and rust. And what happens is the chemical reaction they discovered way back in 1890 when they were building the railroad is that when you do ignite that combination, when the rust gives its oxygen over to the aluminum, forming what? Aluminum oxide. And then when the rust gives its oxygen over to the aluminum, it doesn't have any more oxygen anymore. And what happens when rust doesn't have any more oxygen? It's pure iron. Pure iron. And the reaction produces a temperature of 4,000 degrees, sometimes more, sometimes a little less, but up that region, 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. They use that to make the railroad by welding the tracks together. They put a little sand on each side of the railroad. They get some rust and some aluminum. They ignite it, and wowee, everything fuses together because steel melts at about 2750, 2800. So you come at stuff that melts at 2800 with 4,000, they talk about it slicing through butter with a hot knife. The way they use this trick now to bring the building down, to put up those different pieces of steel that we showed you in the photograph. Yeah, that photograph. Wow. That's all about 30 feet long. And the story is that the Controlled Demolition Company advertised that when they bring a building down, they take pains for their crew to arrange for the cutting charges to be placed so the steel comes down in lengths of about 31 feet for convenient loading onto flatbed trucks. So that's why this photograph is such a kicker. There you see those 30-foot lengths all in different angles because they're, moving around in space. But that's what we're talking about. We're talking about two and a half floors of that building to get an idea of the scale. So you see what a floor of that building sort of looks like and what the length of those steels are. They're about 2 floors long. The way the steel was cut, let me tell you, what they do with the thermite reaction is they take the powdered aluminum and the powdered rust and they put it in a kind of a sausage, in a plastic container. You can picture it like a transparent sausage maybe. And it only has to be maybe 2 inches, 3 inches. There are videos online. My favorite one is called 9/11 Mysteries by a wonderful woman. And in there they have a controlled demolition crew walking you through. We put here this sausage-like thing. They put it up against a steel beam and they attach it with wire, with tape, so that it's in the spot they want. And they explain that when they make a cut on a steel structure, they don't go flat across. They come at a 45-degree angle so that after the cut, there's a sliding. If you just go flat one against the other, it would just come down on itself and no good would happen. And what they didn't want the public to see on the steel was those 45-degree cuts. So that's where they were shipped only at night off to China to melt, or wherever it was, as opposed to it being treated as a crime scene where all the evidence is before the public and examined. It took Bush 440 days to launch an investigation of 9/11. The widows of the victims were able finally to make enough pressure that Bush consented to an investigation, and he named to be the executive director of the investigation Henry Kissinger. Then these same widows shamed Henry Kissinger into resigning from that job by pointing out in his face that he had Arab countries as his customers for his public relations company, so he should recuse himself. He had an interest in the outcome. And when they nailed him, I hear the story, he actually dropped his drink. I like that part of the story. So, Amy, we're talking about a controlled demolition situation in which these cutting charges are placed every 30 feet along the vertical columns. Now let me tell you about those vertical columns, Amy. The way the World Trade Center was constructed was an original idea. The idea was that once you got out of the elevator and you went into the world of the office spaces around the elevator, there weren't any columns. You could arrange the furniture, the partitions, any way you want because it's all being held up by the core. We have a very sturdy core, and then the core in the middle of the building has branches underneath the flooring that go to the walls. That's the trick. And the elevators are located among the core columns. So the way the building was demolished is that demolition crews would ride on top of the elevators. They would have access when they stopped the elevators at the different floors to attach cutting charges to the core columns, which are in the corners of the elevator shafts. So those pieces of steel are a lot of those columns. They were loading something of the order of 400 truckloads of steel a night. That much steel had come down already cut. Each
35 feet.
I was thinking it's 110 stories. There's about 47, 50, say, core columns. So how many pieces of steel is that? You know, it's like each, if it's 110 floors and you divide it by 2, that's like 50 cuts in each column. So it's basically 50 times 50 is 2,500 pieces of steel. Okay, and they loaded that away quickly, and they didn't want any pictures because you would see the characteristic when these cutting charges work. There's a bubbling along the edge of molten iron. It's not steel being ripped by, some fire got the steel hot. That's another joke, Amy. As far as jet fuel causing 9/11 to happen and weakening the steel, jet fuel is basically kerosene. Kerosene burns, doesn't melt any steel. It's like when you turn the gas on your range, that steel is burning all the time at the same temperature as the kerosene, and the steel is perfectly happy holding up your pot. It doesn't melt, doesn't soften, doesn't weaken. So that's all total nonsense. But again, for filing cabinets to turn to dust, and computers and people and desks. That made the cleanup easy. It all turned to dust, boys and girls, and that steel came down. It was quickly hauled away. There weren't even many bodies to fret about. That turned to dust. That's 9/11, and today is 9/11, Harold. So we talk about saving America from a big lie. Joe Friendly here is to say, hello, America. What do we do about it? We recognize that our government is unworthy of its power.
I was going to ask you, is there any claim to who planned all of that? Who is responsible for that?
Oh, sorry, right. Okay, I'll score one. That's a good interruption, Harold. I'll give you a good one for that. As far as who created 9/11.
Yeah.
The idea goes back, way back to 1970, before the construction of the World Trade Center was even considered. When Israeli leadership said out loud, and those are on video, wouldn't it be useful for Arab hijacked airplane to go into the tallest building in New York, or in the USA?
Now, is that...
They were already proposing that. That's online on video. You can watch it. The guy who found that is a guy named Christopher Bolin, Bollyn. And people accuse him of being anti-Semite because he's picking on Israel, but he's just trying to report the truth as best he can. And he lived for 6 months in an Israeli kibbutz and married an Israeli woman, so I couldn't fault him for being anti-Semitic. He's just telling the truth. And here goes Truth for a Change, Joe Friendly, to say that the media haven't provided us with the waking up we need about 9/11, but on the Harold Channer, Joe Friendly, Truth for a Change grip on public access, we're going to try to break the bubble. We're trying to bring down a government that doesn't deserve to be our boss anymore.
That would be the governmental system of the United States of America. And who in the American governmental system would be responsible for 9/11 as you're laying it out?
Oh, that's right. That was your question.
Or the political leadership.
Okay, so here we go. We got this guy Zellico you're talking about.
Yeah.
All right, here's the story with him. His name is Philip D. Zellico. Okay. He wrote a book together with Condoleezza Rice on German propaganda. He teaches at Ivy League schools, Harvard in particular. He led a seminar in April of 1998 that culminated in it went for several months, but they had then a shortened version of like 3 weeks. And finally they had a videotaped presentation of some of the principles in the seminar, and they were, again, Philip Zellico, along with a former head of the CIA, Jonathan Deutsch, and an intellectual at that point was just an advisor. His name was Ashton Carter. He eventually became Secretary of Defense under Obama. So their name of their seminar is one of the handles we have on it. They called it Catastrophic Terrorism, Element of a National Policy, or elements, plural. So they were saying how to use a catastrophic terrorism event to put forward, to make progress in our agenda. And they recite online, I downloaded some of the pages. It was published by the Harvard Press in 168 pages. And they talk about a terrorist event that would kill several thousand. That was their term. And I'm thinking 2785 or something, they score 9/11. That's just about several thousand, not quite 3. But considering all the firemen that died from breathing all that asbestos later on.
It was a pretty dramatic event.
Incidentally, one thing that comes to mind when I say asbestos, Amy Goodman, is that 10 years before 9/11, the owners of the Port Authority made requests to the New York government, can we please bring down the buildings by controlled demolition? They were a mistake to build. We don't have them wired enough we don't have enough space to put in the modern electronic communications necessary, but basically we can't rent them out. We haven't been able to find tenants for our buildings. We've had to force the government to give us tenants from them and pay us rent just to survive. But the problem is the city has ordered us to remove all the asbestos that was flaking off the steel. Oh, I didn't mention that. They had a problem that asbestos foam, fire retardant asbestos foam, had been applied as a 1.5-inch thick foam around the steel that supported the building, and that was flaking off. It wasn't sticking properly, and the government ordered the owners of the building, Port Authority, to remove that asbestos and replace it with fiberglass. And they went for bids to have that work accomplished, and the low bid, Harold, was $2 billion.
That's a lot.
It's a little hard what to do with that asbestos once you take it off too, buddy, but criming all around there and scraping it up. The reason that the asbestos was a problem, I think, was that it was applied during worker unrest.
Okay, go on. Yeah.
There was some trouble. The unions were fighting and stuff, but they didn't scrape off the rust before they applied the foam. The $2 billion job was not performed. And nobody talked much about it, don't you know, because it was just a little asbestos flaking off. But when the whole building turned to dust, that spread the asbestos as wide as possible to cause thousands and thousands of deaths. That decision was made by the guys who cooked this baby up, that's for sure.
Now, who were the guys that cooked it up, honey?
Okay, so we're saying Zellicoe had this seminar with Jonathan Deutsch and Ashton Carter. Who else was there?
Or who was in on it, and how does it involve the United States government?
It happened while the Clinton administration was in power, and the ones who attended it were the ones who were the future Bush administration. Now, 9/11 is our opportunity to replace a government that is unfit. Our government is unfit. And while we're at it, to replace our economy.
Oh, okay.
And while we're at it, here's the big one.
There you got some other ideas.
We got to rescue our culture as a people.
Okay.
That, you know, you get degrees in anthropology here and there now and then, and the idea is to apply that wisdom that we have accumulated to face, as a people, our culture, and show how it does not bring the good in humanity out. That what we want is individuality to thrive in our school system. That means encouraging free expression, encouraging critical thinking, not accepting our government insinuations as the truth like we got now. There is a truth that we have to face about the United States. It has been arguing that commercialism is the only way. They have other names for it. They call it the free market. But my point here, America, my point on 9/11 is that we declare, instead of business as usual, we choose to rescue our whole culture so that what is promoted is humanity thriving, reason, honesty, people telling the truth to each other instead of business games where you only say what's profitable to each other.
Is there any historical period we could repair to get an example that could be worthy of consideration for the modern world as we look ahead?
We're just going to try it, Harold. We're just going to say, Joe Friendly said we're going to be good, and we're going to try to be good. But here's my new religion.
Oh, new religion.
Our new religion is that we unite under the theory, the plea, the wisdom, the hope of unity. And that we are all one as a people. And our religion is not doing the cross thing. Our religion is, we signify together, we believe in the unity of humanity.
Okay, that's a biggie. That's a biggie that we've been striving after, I think, probably.
So that's the hope. Do you have the hope, brother? I have the hope. What are you hoping about? I'm hoping that Joe Friendly's plan for a peaceful revolution gets voted into being, that the government in waiting they're building by discussing how to change the way the drug companies do their business, we talk out loud about if the people ran the pharmacy business, how it would be. We people talk out loud, and then we voted into being.
Yeah,
well, you wanted me
to
name some people, and I named Amy and Tom Hartman and those guys at NYC.
If you
Who else? Well, David Corton.
David Corton
and
a good guy.
Philip Joseph.
You're
I
getting
like
good
his
people.
And they can find more.
I think you've suggested some, have you not? If I'm not mistaken.
I have lists online.
Yeah,
if you go to Peaceful Revolution and JoeFriendly.
You got so many.
I guess it's .org. JoeFriendly.org has the revolution, and JoeFriendly.com has my birthday theory. Meanwhile, I could read you more of my revolution. To just show you that I can put it in words. You know what I mean? Good words.
And what would be
so
the
important.
thinking, the economic theory that would inform it? Political theory?
Economic theory,
whatever.
Well, the economic theory, Harold, is our public corporations. We vote into being, in which all the people participating are thinking on the lines of how to be good.
Wait a minute. Say that again.
How to be good.
How to be good.
They all try to be good. They try to be just. They try to be open to good ideas.
You're claiming that perhaps there are a number of people that aren't trying to be good, but are only interested in the bottom line, profit, political advantage. Take on
Harold,
things?
Don't be a stupid jerk, please. That every single person in the corporation is aware that there are corporate policies you must obey, surrender to, play up to. There are systems of favorites of people, who to talk to when. There is a going game. And JoeFriendly here is proposing a rescue of that. Harold, can you handle it, or you have to insist on
I sure would love to
at
consider it. No, I'm all for it. I think, lay it out, brother. Lay it out. How it might work.
I was going to read it.
Okay.
I'll start again from the top.
No, I think there's a lot of people yearning for a big
direct democracy.
Change.
Thank you. Talk. Direct democracy, actual democracy, replacing our failed representative government. So we got a government that don't deserve to be here. We caught them on 9/11 pushing a big lie. And incidentally, how did that concrete turn to dust? Oh, that's
thermite.
Right. In the dust, they found a nano product. Nanotechnology was an improvement on what I was talking about. Instead of powdered aluminum and rust in a sausage-like gadget, what they found in the dust was a 100-year improvement in the concept. They found nano-sized cubes. We're talking billionths of a meter.
Right.
Nano-sized cubes in chambers, protective heat-resistant chambers with nano-sized smooth, flat plates of aluminum. So those little cubes nestled in those chambers could put their flat surfaces flat against the aluminum plates. They found those chambers grouped as a foam atop nano-sized ceramic chips. Although I might be cheating you, the ceramic chips might not have been nano-sized. They might be one notch up from nano. They were like real small, like a millimeter with millions of chambers. But anyhow, Harold, the point is that nanotechnology developed somewhere 40, 50 years ago. They discovered they could make stuff small, and they experimented. They tried out what would happen if we took those aluminum particles and those rust particles and we made them extra small, and wowie, they had a super explosive. Not only did they achieve the temperature of 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit, but boom, it popped. There was pressure wave, and they could use that pressure wave to do what explosions do. They push things apart. So they thought, wow, this stuff has more power per unit. Let's put it on real thin and see if it works. That works. And then they said, why don't we paint it on? So they mixed it with paint, and the paint prevented the touching contact, so that didn't work. But what they found in 9/11 was that what was painted on were these chips in which they had protective chambers of silicon millions of them, and in each of the little not each, but in many of the little chambers were these aluminum particles, nano size. That's what they found in the dust.
Did it have a name? Or?
It's called thermite. The difference between thermite and thermate is the addition to the chemistry of sulfur that helps do different things.
You really have looked into this, haven't you? And a number of people have.
So, hello, on 9/11, we're going to face the fact that we were duped, that we accepted a big lie, and therefore we have to think quick, and we have to do this kind of quick. We have to say we do need a rethinking of our economic institutions so they actually serve the people and the planet instead of right now they serve the rich few.
How do you think the political leadership and business leadership of the world, both nationally and internationally, look upon this theory of what happened on 9/11?
Here's what they're going to say. They're
saying, Joe, we so
welcome you're improving our economic institutions. We have felt guilty all along. As we go off into the golf course on our vacations, we do feel sorry how we treat our employees and the public and the planet. And, you know, that global warming, I guess it would be better if we sort of pretended it was for real. And you know what I mean. Joe, we're real sorry about it, and thanks for saving the public and the planet instead of it all blowing up with Trump doing that nuclear stuff. And there you go, Harold.
Well, I'm not sure. There was a lot of words said there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know. Here, let me read my revolution now.
Oh, well.
We begin creating a government in waiting.
Big change.
Yeah, well, big change, right, Harold. We begin creating a government in waiting.
Okay.
To lead us in a national discussion. So that's what I'm talking about, revolution by discussion. And you're saying, what about the bad guys? Aren't they going to holler? Are they going to take out their guns and shoot at the people talking about it? I'm hoping they don't.
Well, the bad guys make up the system's leadership by and large, in your view, don't they?
That's what social media is about. It's an alternative, Harold.
Oh, no, social media. You're talking about the importance of the.
We're going to do the discussion in social media. In the alternative.
In the alternative, and that's a hopeful thing. The social media.
Well, we can get maybe we can get one at the one that joins our side. They're going to get a lot of viewers, but we're going to be easy on the ads, guys. Yeah, no more ads after the revolution. That's one thing. God, ads are really a force on you of stuff you don't want to hear, and they just force it on you even though you don't want it.
Well, I don't know if we're awakening. James Joyce.
So then I think, wow. I can't
James
believe
Joyce.
Whoa, Harold, shut the fuck up with James Joyce. No, you don't deserve to repeat him on every fucking show, Harold. Well, and I already had you set up. You were saying that before we started. I set you up and you did join in, and you gave me the complete quote rather than just the history being a nightmare part. What's the whole thing, Harold?
No, it's just history is a nightmare of injustice from which we're attempting to awaken. Do you think there's a chance mankind
here comes
is awakening from a historical pattern of injustice that has always been?
Do you think it's appropriate for you to talk instead of me, Harold?
Well, I don't know. I'm just thinking.
Don't I have better stuff to say than you, Harold?
Well, you've said an awful lot, I'll tell you that.
Okay,
and there's probably news to a lot of people. It's worth hearing,
A legal system that provides justice instead of what we got. Our legal system we got now was adopted from England, and it's a word game in which the judges don't get that much power to make justice. They got to follow precedents. I say scrap the whole thing, and I did get a doctor's degree in jurisprudence.
You did? That's absolutely true.
Thank you, Gerald.
Yeah.
I'm saying scrap it all, that what we can do is have judges empowered to give you quick justice. You got a problem, you go directly to the judge, and the judge helps you do whatever is needed to communicate with the interested parties so that the justice happens. But judges empowered to make justice, that is something to add to the game that right now we just have representatives in D.C. You can send email. No. This revolution is going to give you judges. And what my scientific discovery claims is that we can identify people who would make good judges.
That would be really important.
And we give them that power.
Yeah.
And we trust their intuitive gifts, but we do keep them on camera.
That would be
the
part
public
of the leadership,
is watching, so that their powers are subject to human monitoring.
Oh, but as a group, yeah. Are there individual peoples within the
Well, you know what I was thinking? I was like, for right now, people who have trouble finding jobs, they could watch the screen and monitor judges. They could be employment.
Spell it out. Well, this is the thing you're proposing we could introduce into the
We are going to allow the public to watch the corporate boardrooms in action. And when they see stuff that they don't like, they can monitor it and challenge it. And right now, the way we do that is YouTube. We got viewers and their comments. I do frankly worry a little bit that I do see humanity presented in kind of disappointing ways with some of those comments. But I am proposing...
YouTube is a godsend, it seems to me, don't you think? You're bringing beautifully enlightened stuff onto your program using YouTube.
Okay, here comes the next kicker. Now, here comes the big step. Are you ready, Harold?
I'm trying. You're putting some very big themes out here.
We rescue our culture, our planet, from commercialism, replacing immoral capitalism with the ways of the clear conscience, a moral, rational order. We reconsider the role of money in our lives. I would call it metric slavery we have. We create work worth doing for all at living wages. That's the government we discuss into being. It takes on that responsibility that we as a people don't look at the marketplace and say, gee, what want ads are out there? We have an open system in which when there is work to do, we communicate it freely with each other. When there is a willingness to do jobs that need to be done, we coordinate that cheerfully but directly. We aim at it. That's the name of the game, is to accomplish an efficient transition. We don't use the marketplace. We have a system in which people honestly communicate to all of us what's needed, and we respond. I'm talking about human solidarity being the way of the clear conscience that we actually encourage as the replacement for business as usual, commercialized culture, neighborhoods fighting with each other. I mean, neighbors fighting. Our neighborhoods too. You know what I'm saying, Harold? Can you dig it?
Yeah, absolutely. I can hear it very, very clearly.
I'll give you a handshake on that one.
No, I can hear it very, very clearly.
How much time do we got?
We got on this program. We've got about 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
A little 9 minutes. Okay.
So I'm saying that's a mouthful. Like they're saying, what is your alternative? I'm articulating the language of alternative.
Yeah, and you're also that's good. We got another program we can do. We might be able to get into the details of the language that would be alternative to the thing, but you're suggesting that the systems in place are inadequate to what the future either allows or requires if we're not to face disaster.
I came across a smart guy, Harold, who told me that we had achieved, at this stage in our development, the capability of abundance.
And
here I'm talking about how to aim directly at achieving that abundance. We don't wait for the markets deciding what products to make by looking at what's profitable and all this, but we as a whole people, we aim together as a unified humanity to do the right, wise, good thing. I'm saying a rational moral order. Can I make it any stretcher?
Well,
what does that mean?
Has it ever existed in the past? I think not.
Give a good. Why raise that? You say human nature isn't capable of it? That's what you're saying.
The human nature has not been, in 200,000 years of existence, been able to have such a thing.
It hasn't had cell phones for all that time either.
What has changed
cell
that
phones
might
have done it.
make possible in the time ahead what never has been possible?
A cell phone allows each individual to talk to everybody in the planet, just about. That has to change.
It's pretty miraculous. We didn't have cell phones but just yesterday.
That's an argument for making your peace with making a break from the gloom of history and going with Joe Friendly's friendly revolution, happy idea that we could
I think you're really
be good to each other.
Really. I think everybody
How about that, boys and girls? We be good to each other.
Yeah, I think.
Come on.
What a unique idea. What a unique idea. That
wait, how much do we have to be good? All the time?
Yeah. That's asking too much. Yeah, you get off on Saturday night or something. But but that's something that's blowing. Bobby Dylan wrote a song, "Blowing in the Wind," and there's something blowing in the wind that makes this time different than all of human history. And I think
I'm inspired.
That's an idea that is huge in itself, and it's widespread in the world.
Thank you for useless talk.
So they're looking for answers to how we can achieve
I'm giving them, so why you take up the time talking when I'm giving the answer?
You're laying the premise for the inadequacy of what we've inherited. We should be talking about what could be done to make an alternative.
All right. Stop.
Perhaps.
Stop.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks for the wrap.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. We experiment with group and individual management. We do what needs to be done to save our planet. That right there, we aim as a people
That's rather
to
a large
jobs,
template.
but frankly, that has not been faced by our system right now.
Right.
I'm saying that's the replacement of a corrupt government. Is they're not worrying about it, and the jobs to be done are to make huge changes in the way we deal with electricity and make electricity and move water around. And right now the corporations have taken advantage of the corruption to do horrible things with our air and our water and our land.
There's a real
and so
problem,
I'm saying the revolution is we discuss as a people a government into being that solves those problems. We face them.
Yeah.
Right now they can't say, well, those people aren't going to give up without a fight. I'm saying let's face it all, Harold. Don't worry about them not being happy about it.
What the ideal would be is if we could put something forth that could not only be revolutionary and in keeping with what the future requires, but also something that those who have been responsible for the inherited institutions, now outdated, could also understand and go along with, so that everybody could be involved in the pattern that's emerging. That would be ideal.
Now will you stop talking?
Yes. Well, I just thought that.
Yeah, you just thought that. You've said that many times, Harold.
Yeah.
And the answer to that is we want everybody to be happy. And if there's a few of the guys who were real rich before that aren't as happy as they were before when they were so rich, they have to be crazy, because to see so many people happy and to see humanity thriving, why would they be complaining, oh, it was so nice when I had all the gold and the money and they didn't? Oh, please, let's go back to that other way. Can I get some military guys to shoot all the leadership of the good guys so I can have my riches and be the richest guy in the block again?
You mock it, but it's not really.
That's what it comes down to. Harold, 7 guys.
People have a
7
commitment
guys
to
have
the
more
past.
wealth than 98% of the planet, or
not
something.
98, half the population
Okay,
of the
there you
world.
go.
8
Sorry
people
about
the wealth
that.
of. Yeah, that's popular.
Okay, so
in
why
the
isn't
popular
that tell you the
consciousness.
game over?
Well, I think it's sensed widely, and I think you voiced a lot of the questions.
Okay, let me keep reading from my peaceful
or the indictment, sir, in this court of public opinion.
All right, here I got new information now. Shut up and listen to something new.
Okay,
new.
We got a couple minutes left of this
shut
program.
Up, guys. He has to
and then we get on to the actual means by which we might achieve what you're suggesting is due to happen.
We end U.S. military and economic domination upon the world and become a true friend to the world. Now, Joe Friendly is saying that what we got going now is not being friendly to the world. And what we have been doing to the world, economically and militarily, has to be exposed, has to be openly faced as a people, and to see, wow, this has been bad. Indeed, our government does need to be replaced. This is horrible. And in particular, instead of blowing us up with Trump and Korea, we should apologize to Korea as a people that we are the bad guys. Korea are the good guys, that war in Korea was a criminal enterprise by the U.S., that after the Japanese had done horrible things, occupying Korea for 35 years at least, They had done horrible things. Finally, the Koreans are free of the Japanese occupation with the end of World War II. Imagine that moment in history.
Yeah.
The Koreans are free of the occupation of the Japanese, and they want to be, again, Korea, their own people. And so Korea is partitioned with the understanding that in 5 years there will be a vote for unification, one Korea. And instead, the United States cheated and installed puppet governments and military bases. And one story in particular I heard a couple days ago, I will give you the real kicker. To build those military bases, they just came upon with bulldozers whole villages in Korea.
Yeah.
That's not saving Korea, Harold. That is just pushing your weight around. They would just scrape villages off the territory and build these bases. And the story I heard the other day was there was a village next to a base, and they scraped it away so they could build a golf course for the officers.
Oh my God.